Hello and welcome to another Beyond Shakespeare exploring session or experience, depending on how you want to experience it or name it. I don't know. It's a Beyond Shakespeare exploring session officially. This is a first look at Tamer Tamed by John Fletcher. It's our second session of a first look, so that's not going to get confusing. And yeah, basically we are continuing our reading from Act 2, Scene 1. And here to read this play with me are, are the following lovely people. Reading Moroso and Tranio.
Alan Scott, based in Suffolk.
Reading Livia, Maid 1, Sophocles, Citizen, I think, and Pedro is...
Rachael, act on the East Coast. Beyond Shakespeare Experience sounds like a Jefferson Airplane song.
I know, right? It's sort of totally. And then we've got Liza. Sorry, I mean, Liza is not a character. Maybe you are. I don't know. Reading Maria or Mariah, Maid 2, Rowland. Sorry, not Rowland. You're not reading Rowland. Jaques and Song is in that shambolic fashion.
Liza Graham, actor, singer, impossible to get rid of, London.
We are very glad not to get rid of you. And reading Byancha, Maid 3, and Petruchio.
Hello, my name is Lynn Freitas. I teach college composition and I live in the Northwestern United States.
And last but definitely not least, reading Petronius and Rowland. I'm having a bad day. Clearly the coffee is not kicked in.
Hi, my name's Elizabeth Amisu and I'm an author based in Romford.
Okay, and I'm Eric, and I'll be reading pretty much everything else, or wherever things go wrong. I'll be reading Country People and Stage Directions as well as everything else. So I need to find the script, of course, because I'm that disorganized. And yes, onward. And Act 2, Scene 1, enter Petronius and Moroso, who is an old man.
A box of the air, do you say?
Yeah, sure, a sound one. Beside, my nose blown to my hand. If Cupid shoot arrows of that wake, I'll swear devoutly his suit is livery and is no more a boy.
You gave her some ill language.
Not a word.
Or might be you were fumbling.
Would I had, sir. I had been forehand then, but to be baffled, and I have no feeling of the cause.
Be patient. I have a medicine clapped to her back will cure her.
No, sure, it must be a 4, sir.
Oh, my conscience. When I got these 2 wenches, who till now ne'er showed their riding, I was drunk with bastard, whose nature is to form things like itself, heady and monstrous. Did she slight him too?
That's all my comfort, a mere hobby horse. She made child Rowland, but she would not know him, not give him a free look, not reckon him among her thoughts, which I held more than wonder. I, having seen her within 3 days kiss him with such an appetite, as though she would eat him.
Oh, there is some trick in this. How did he take it?
Ready to cry. He ran away.
I fear her. And yet I tell you, ever to my anger, she is as tame as innocency. It may be this blow was but a favour.
I'll be sworn 'twas well tied on then.
Go to, pray forget it. I have bespoke a priest, and within 2 hours I'll have ye married. Will that please you?
Yes.
I'll see it done myself, and give the lady such a sound exhortation for this knavery, I'll warrant you, shall make her smell this month on it.
Nay, good sir, be not violent.
Neither.
It may be, out of her earnest love, there grew a longing. You know women have such toys in kindness. To give me a box on the ear or so.
It may be.
I reckon for the best still. This night, then, I shall enjoy her.
You shall handle her.
Old as I am, I'll give her one blow for it that shall make her grown this 12 months.
Where's your jointure?
I have a jointure for her.
Have your council perused it yet?
No counsel but the night. And your sweet daughter shall e'er peruse that jointure.
Very well, sir.
I'll no demurs on it. No, nor no rejoinders. T'other's ready sealed.
Come then, let's comfort my son Petruchio. He's like a little children that lose their baubles crying ripe.
Pray tell me, is this stern woman still upon the flaunt of bold defiance?
Still, and still she shall be, till she be starved out. You shall see such justice, that women shall be glad after this tempest to tie their husbands' shoes and walk their horses.
That were a merry word. Do you hear the rumour? They say the women are in insurrection and mean to make up.
They'll sooner draw upon the walls as we do. Let 'em. We'll ship 'em out in cuckstalls. There they'll sail as brave Columbus did, till they discover the happy islands of obedience. We stay too long. Come.
Now, St. George be with us.
And they exit. Any thoughts from people in the room, or shall we? Yeah, and I don't know if it's a long enough scene. It's a very short scene, isn't it? Alan.
Well, it seems to be trying to wake the audience up by let's have some bawdy gags, because that's basically the whole drift of that sequence, isn't it?
Yes.
It's not just gags though. It shows the male characters meeting the women's resistance by threats of force.
Mhm.
The implication being that Livia's father is going to force her to marry Moroso, and Moroso is then going to force her to have sex with him, which is basically patriarchy in action, right?
Yeah.
Indeed. Well,
Yeah.
also, we did have like the sort of in the previous scene. Previous scene being Act 1, scene something. Is we had basically Livia dealing blows to Moroso and Rowland dealing blows to Moroso also, which was funny for about 2 minutes, and then they sort of, Moroso and Petronius going, yeah, we're totally gonna force this to happen in this scene, which is not creepy at all.
Yeah, it's not creepy at all. Yeah.
Yeah. Any thoughts or?
Yeah, I think Alan's observation can be true at the same time. Not a whole lot of substance goes on in this scene, and this is a later play and may have been done indoors, so you had a little pause between every act where they trim the candles. So I think we're sort of like, oh, we're back on our heads is also might be what's going on. So I think both those things can be operative at the same time.
Yeah, true. Rachel, did you raise a hand or were you pondering? We got you. Okay, you've decided
You're
against
muted
it.
anyway, honey, so
Okay. Act 2, Scene 2 then, if there's no other observations. Enter Livia alone.
Now if I can get in handsomely. Now if I can but get in handsomely, Father, I shall deceive you. And this night, for all your private plotting, I'll know wedlock. I have shifted sail and find my sister's safety a sure retirement. Pray to heaven that Rowland do not believe too far what I said to him, for yon old fox case forced me, that's my fear. Stay, let me see. This quarter fierce Petruchio keeps with his myrmidons. I must be sudden. If he seize on me, I can look for nothing but martial law. To this place have I sent him. Above there.
Enter Mariah and Byancha above.
Viva la.
A friend.
who are you?
Look out and know.
Alas, poor wench! Who sent thee? What weak fool made thy tongue his orator? I know you come to parley.
You're deceived. Urged by the goodness of your cause, I come to do as you do.
You're too weak, too foolish to cheat us with your smoothness. Do not we know thou hast been kept up tame?
Believe me.
No, prithee, good Livia, utter thy eloquence somewhere else.
Good cousin, put up your pipes. We are not for your palate. Alas, we know who sent you.
Oh, my word.
Stay there. You must not think your word, or by your maidenhead, or such Sunday oaths sworn after evensong can inveigle us to lose our handfast. Did their wisdoms think that sent you hither, we would be so foolish to entertain our gentle sister Sinon and give her credit, while the wooden jade Petruchio stole upon us. No, good sister, go home and tell the merry Greeks that sent you, Ilium shall burn, and I, as did Aeneas, will on my back, spite of Myrmidons, carry this warlike lady through the seas unknown, and unbelieved seek out a land where, like a race of noble Amazons, we'll root ourselves to the endless glory, live and despise base men.
I'll second ye.
How long have you been thus?
That's all one, cousin. I stand for freedom now.
Take heed of lying, for by this night, if we do credit you and find you tripping, his infliction that killed the Prince of Orange will be sport to what we propose.
Let me feel the heaviest.
Swear by thy sweetheart Rowland, for by your maidenhead I fear 'twill be too late to swear. You mean nothing but fair and safe and honorable to us and to yourself.
I swear.
Stay yet. Swear as you hate Moroso, that's the surest, and as you have certain fear to find him worse than a poor dry jack full of more aches than autumn has, more knavery and usury and foolery and brokery than dog stitch, as you do constantly believe he's nothing but an old empty bag with a gray beard, and that beard such a bobtail that it looks worse than a mare's tail eaten off with fillies, as you acknowledge that young handsome wench that lies by such a bilboa blade that bends with every pass he makes to the hilt most miserable, as dry nurse to his coughs, a feuderer to such a nasty fellow, a robbed thing of the delights youth looks for, and to end, one cast away on corse beef, born to brush that everlasting cassock that was worn as many servants out as the Northeast Passage has consumed sailors. If you swear this, and truly without the reservation of a gown or any meritorious petticoat, 'tis like we shall believe you.
I do swear it.
Stay yet a little. Came this wholesome motion, deal truly, sister, from your own opinion or some suggestion of the foe?
Never fear me, for by that little faith I have in husbands, and the great zeal I bear your cause, I come full of that liberty you stand for, sister.
If we believe and you prove recreant, Livia, think what a main you give the noble cause we now stand up for. Think what women shall in 100 years hence speak thee, when examples are looked for, and so great ones whose relations spoke as we do, and whence shall make new customs.
If you be false, repent, go home, and pray, and to the serious women of the city confess yourself. Bring not a sin so heinous to load thy soul to this place. Mark me, Livia, if thou beest double and betrayest our honors, and we fail in our purpose, get thee where there is no women living, nor no hope there ever shall be.
If a mother's daughter that ever heard the name of stubborn husband find thee and know thy sin.
Nay, if old age, one that has worn away thy name of one that has worn away the name of woman, and no more left to know her, but railing, no teeth, nor eyes, nor legs, but wooden ones. Come, but in the windward of thee, for sure she'll smell thee. Thou'lt be so rank, she'll ride thee like a nightmare, and say her prayers backward to undo thee. She'll curse thy meat and drink, and when thou marriest, clap a sound spell forever on thy pleasures.
Children of 5-year-old like little fairies shall pinch thee into motley. All that ever shall live and hear of thee, I mean all women will like so many furies shake their keys, and toss their flaming distaffs o'er their heads, crying revenge. Take heed, 'tis hideous. Oh, 'tis a fearful office. If thou hadst, though thou be least perfect now, when thou camest hither a false imagination, get thee gone, and as my learned cousin said, repent. This place is sought by soundness.
So I seek it, or let me be a most despised example.
I do believe thee. Be thou worthy of it. You come not empty?
No, here's cakes and cold meat and tripe of proof. Behold, here's wine and beer. Be sudden, I shall be surprised else.
Meet at the low parlor door, there lies a close way. What fond obedience you have living in you, or duty to a man, before you enter, fling it away. 'Twill but defile our offerings.
Be wary as you come.
I warrant ye.
And they exit, which brings the scene to a close. Well, that was an interesting scene. It made me think of what I think Liza mentioned it yesterday, or Lynn, that they didn't care for other women's, well, not feminism, but like their place in society. Kind of like they were shoving off the, you can go relieve yourself with the chambermaid or the dairy milkmaid or whatever. So, yeah. Anyway, I'll be quiet now and leave other people to speak. Liza, then Alan, then Liza. Sorry.
Yeah, I must admit, I'm getting a feeling from this almost swearing oaths. If you don't behave, we'll set the local women's institute on you.
Yeah.
Which in English villages is probably the worst threat you can utter, because they're usually the source of most of the power.
Liza, then Rachael.
Yeah, I mean, it strikes me as continuing the martial metaphor from before, that this is in fact a war, and if someone wants to enter your ranks, you have to make sure they're not a spy. So they do. Theatrically, this scene seems longer and more repetitive than it has to be, and if I staged this play, I'd probably cut it some. But it's that sort of interrogation, and we, the audience, know that she's actually seeking refuge, that she is genuine, she's not going to betray anyone. It's also, it reminded me a little bit of the kind of questioning a novice would undergo in order to take vows as a nun. It's sort of examine the state of your soul and see if your vocation is genuine, sort of thing. And there's, yes, I've talked too long. Lynn.
No, Rachael was next.
Rachael,
Yeah.
Yes.
Rachael, then.
My question was, it could be answered in the chat too, is just, what is a women's institute? What does that mean?
Well, in many villages, it's actually the primary source of power, because it's where the older ladies meet once a week over tea and cakes to sort out anybody who they have taken exception to.
Oops.
It's not just that. They're hubs of collaboration and company and skill for women. A friend of mine is the president of her local one in a town outside Manchester. The clubs, basically, just a nice club.
The club.
Lynn, you had something to add.
Yeah, but and in this culture, reputation and what other people said about you was really, really important, almost most people lived not in big cities like London, but in smaller towns where everybody knew everybody. So yeah, I imagine the Ladies' Institute is sort of the source of gossip and rumor too. So your reputation was in their hands. So I just, a small thing I wanted to flag up is Livia's next to last line: be sudden, do this right now, I shall be surprised else. The word surprised is explicitly military. It had its sort of, it didn't adopt its more general sense until later. It meant ambushed. It meant attacked unawares. So surprised is explicitly a military term. So yeah, the military thing is going on. A sort of bigger observation, though, is this strikes me as also a chance for the playwright to show off a little, but of course it comes off as the characters showing off. That extended metaphor about Troy, shows that who is that? That's Maria saying that, or Mariah saying that she is somewhat learned. She knows the story of Troy, and so she's making all these parallels. Sinon is the Greek who
betrayed
the Trojans. Persuaded them to bring the wooden horse into the city. And Aeneas was one of the good guys as far as the English were concerned. Because legend had it that he founded Rome later. So it gives it a kind of mock epic feel, which I really enjoyed. And then Byancha's sort of long list of insults of older men. I feel guilty for finding that hilarious. So there's verbal fireworks going on too. That's just sort of because it's fun.
Yeah.
So that's part of the pleasure of this scene, is that how well these women talk, which again, a scene with 3 women like we had in the first act, and they're all very distinct, and they have things to say, and they're well spoken, and so they're just really well drawn. They're the playwright took some time to create these people, and I'm just appreciating that.
Elizabeth, and then Rachel.
Yeah, I couldn't have said it better myself. What Lynn was saying about the dynamics between these 3 women, it's really unusual. I wouldn't put it on our early modern bingo. But I really enjoy the dynamic between Livia, Maria, and Byancha. I also find it interesting that because Maria and Byancha are above on the stage in the house, and Livia is below, and she's almost like, during the course of the scene, she will elevate her status to, I assume, to becoming physically higher when she gets accepted into the beyond the siege, basically. So I just thought that was really interesting. And I was thinking about the title, The Woman's Prize. I was thinking it interesting that it's not the women's prize, and what the prize is, and which woman specifically the title might be referring to.
Yeah, that's an interesting one. I'm guessing Lynn has an answer to this.
Well, no, I don't have an answer.
Or addition, rather.
I assume that Maria is the woman, because it's her conflict. It's her attempt to negotiate a contract with her new husband that she finds satisfactory. And I just also wanted to mention again, prize, like surprise, is an explicitly military term. It's captive. It's a war prize. So it's war booty. It's a prisoner of war. It's not a prize that you get for winning a contest. That meaning it doesn't show up till later. So again, that military metaphor going on throughout.
Yeah, you've got a point. Rachel, did you have something to add?
It was just I enjoyed the metaphor in the imagery that the speeches of Maria and Byancha, or Mariah and Byancha were giving. And because I just came in today and wasn't here for yesterday's session, I'm still getting used to the dynamic, but this was very interesting. And I like what Elizabeth said about not just the imagery coming up in the words, but the physical imagery you would get to see on stage of the changing status. Yeah, this is really interesting.
Well, also you've got, if I remember correctly, Livia and Mariah are sisters, and then you've got Byancha, who's sort of commander-in-chief / the cousin or something.
Yeah, she's the sister of Petruchio's first wife, so she's kind of a sister-in-law.
Yeah. But it's interesting that they're the ones.
Has that explicitly been stated? Because there's a coincidence of names, but I don't think that's ever actually been stated in the script.
I don't know.
But if you go back to the Taming of a Shrew, then yes, that family dynamic would be there. But I don't think it's actually been made explicit in this.
Yeah. But also it's just interesting because like it means that they're kind of going, oh yeah, you're the little sister. We don't really care what you think. You're kind of, I mean, if you think about it in terms of family relations, it also made me think a bit of sorority tricks, but that kind of feels a bit like it's dumbing it down, not dumbing it down, but like simplifying the dynamic rather than, enjoying all the complexity that's there. Anyway, any further thoughts or drive on to the next scene, which is very short. So I'm thinking we should just run into the next one, but I don't know if we're going to get confused. No, actually, yeah, it's onward. Yes. Act 2, Scene 3. Enter 3 maids.
How goes your business, girls?
Good and fair.
If fortune favor us, away to your strength. The country forces are arrived. Begone, we are discovered else.
Harm and be valiant.
Think of our cause.
Our justice.
'Tis sufficient.
And they exit. Act 2, Scene 4. Enter Rowland and Tranio at several doors.
How now, Rowland?
How do you?
How dost thou, man? Thou looks ill.
Yes. Pray, can you tell me, Tranio, who knew the devil first?
A woman.
So, were they not well acquainted?
Maybe so, for they had certain dialogues together.
He sold her fruit, I take it.
Yes, and cheese that choked all mankind after.
Canst thou tell me whether that woman ever had a faith after she had eaten?
That's a school question.
No, 'tis no question. For believe me, Tranio, that cold fruit after eating bread naught in her but windy promises and colic vows that broke out both ways. Thou hast heard, I'm sure, of Esculapius, a far-named famed surgeon, one that could set together quartered traitors and make them honest men.
How dost thou, Rowland?
Let him but take, if he dare to do a cure, shall get him fame indeed. A faithless woman, there will be credit for him, that will speak him. A broken woman, Tranio, a base woman, and if he can cure such a rack of honour, let him come here and practice.
Oh, now, for honour's sake. Why, what ails thou, Rowland?
I am ridden, Tranio, and spurgled to the life of patience. Heaven keep my wits together by a thing. Our worst thoughts are too noble for a woman.
Your mistress has a little frowned it, maybe?
She was my mistress.
Is she not?
No, Tranio. She had done me such disgrace, so spitefully, so like a woman bent to my undoing, that henceforth a good horse shall be my mistress, a good sword or a book. And if you see her, tell her I do beseech you, even for love's sake.
I will, Rowland.
She may soon account the good I have thought her, our old love and our friendship, shed one true tear, mean 1 hour constantly, be old and honest, married and a maid, then make me see her more, or more believe her. And now I have met a messenger. Farewell, sir.
And Rowland exits.
Alas, poor Rowland, I will do it for thee. This is that dog Moroso, but I hope to see him cold in the mouth first, ere he enjoy her. I'll watch this young man. Desperate thoughts may seize him, and if my purse or counsel can, I'll ease him.
And he exits. I'm just wondering if this is meant to run into the next scene, but I think, well, we can just take a breath and evaluate what's going on here. Any thoughts since we're here? Lynn.
Well,
Rowland's quite the drama queen, isn't he?
Yeah.
She was mean to me, and I'll never speak to her again, and my life is over. And it's just like,
to be fair, he believes himself spurned.
yeah.
Byancha said earlier that she hoped she hadn't been too convincing because she knew Moroso was listening. So if she'd given him any words of love, it would actually have undone them both at that time. But she hasn't had the chance to tell him she didn't mean it.
Yeah. So it does sort of highlight how problematic gender relations can be, because women really have no choice in certain situations but to be duplicitous, and men, at least in this fiction, aren't smart enough to figure that out. So yeah, although there's something I like about this scene. It's kind of the first time that a male character has shown a kind of compassion or tenderness towards another male character. It's been a little yang up to now, but Tranio says, yeah, I'm going to keep an eye on this guy. He seems desperate. And if he needs money or advice, I'll do what I can to make this situation less painful for him. So we haven't seen a lot of that sort of more admirable side of male friendship until now.
Yeah, also kind of, I guess it's that thing of, usually it would be sort of, I'll help him get the woman he wants, rather than, I mean, at least in other things, it's more explicitly stated rather than, I'm just gonna, help and see what happens. Yeah. Any other thoughts? Okay. Onward to Act 2, Scene 5. Enter lots of people. Petruchio, Petronius, Moroso, and Sophocles.
For look you, gentlemen, say I grant her out of my free and liberal love a pardon, which you and all men else know she deserves not, teneatis amici. Can all the world leave laughing?
I think not.
No, they cannot. For I pray consider, have you ever read or heard of, or can any man imagine so stiff a tomboy of so set a malice and such brazen resolution as this young crab tree? And then answer me, and mark but this too, friends, without a cause, not a foul word comes cross here, not a fear she justly can hold on. And do you think I must sleep out my anger and endure it, sew pillows to her ease and lull her mischief? Give me a spindle first. No, my masters, were she as fair as Nella Grease, and a hussif as good as the wise sailor's wife, and young still, never above 15, these tricks to it, she should ride the wild mare once a week, she should. Believe me, friends, she should. I would tabor her till all the legions that are crept into her flew out of the fire in the tails.
Methinks you err now, for to me seems a little sufferance were a far surer cure.
Yet I can suffer where I see promises of peace and amendment.
Give her a few conditions.
I'll be hanged first.
Give her a crabtree cudgel.
So I will, and after it a flock bed for her bones, and hard eggs till they brace her like a drum. She shall be pampered with. She shall not know a stool in 10 months, gentlemen.
This must not be.
Enter Jaques or Jaques.
Arm, out with your weapons, for all the women in the kingdom's on ye.
Enter Pedro.
They swarm like wasps, and nothing can destroy 'em but stopping of their hive and smothering of 'em.
Stand to your guard, sir. All the devils extent are broke upon us like a cloud of thunder. There are more women marching hitherward in rescue of my mistress than e'er turned tail at Sturbridge Fair, and I believe as fiery.
The forlorn hopes led by a tanner's wife. I know her by her hide, a desperate woman. She flayed her husband in her youth and made reins of his hide to ride the parish. Take 'em all together, they are a genealogy of genets, gotten and born thus by the boisterous breath of husbands. They serve, sure, and are swift to catch occasion, I mean their foes, or husbands, by the forelocks. And there they hang like favors. Cry they can, but more for noble spite than fear. And crying like the old giants that were foes to heaven, they heave you, stool on stool, and fling main pot lids like massy rocks. Dart ladles, tossing irons and tongs like thunderbolts, till overlaid they fall beneath the weight, yet still aspiring at those imperious cod's heads that would tame 'em. There's ne'er a one of these, the worst and weakest, choose where you will, but dare attempt the raising against the sovereign peace of Puritans a Maypole and a Morris, maugre mainly their zeal and dudgeon daggers, and yet more dares plant a stand of battering ale against 'em, and drink 'em out of the parish. Whew.
Oh, you fierce Petruchio, this comes of your impatience. There's one brought in the bears against the cannons of the town, made it good and fought 'em.
Another to her everlasting fame erected 2 alehouses of ease. The quarter sessions running against her roundly, in which business 2 of the disannullers lost their nightcaps. A third stood excommunicate by the cudgel. The constable to her external glory drunk hard and was converted, and she victor.
Then are they victualled with pies and puddings, the trappings of good stomachs, noble ale, the true defender, sausages, and smoked ones, if need be, such as serve for pikes, and pork, better the Jews ne'er hated, here and there, a bottle of methaelin, a stout Britain that will stand to 'em. What else they want, they war for.
To council.
Now you must grant conditions, or the kingdom will have no other talk but this.
Away then, and let's advise the best.
Why do you tremble? Why do you tremble?
I have lived thus long to be knocked on the head with half a washing beetle. Praise be wise, sir.
Come, something I'll do, but what it is, I know not.
To council then, and let's avoid their follies. Guard all the doors, or we shall not have a cloak left.
And they exit. I have so many questions about what Jaques said, because
My gosh.
I was following it, and then it just went boom. I don't know.
I mean, I quite love these speeches. The first of Jaques' speeches about warlike women, I think is mostly in generalities and images. And it's sort of a cliche that angry women throw joint stools at their husbands and pot lids and irons and tongs, and they throw things. And I love that they're going to offend Puritans by erecting a maypole. That's a lovely piece of period detail, and also kind of phallic. And then we get, juicily enough, we get what sound very much like references to contemporary events. Pedro's line about one of them brought in the bears against the cannons of the town. I don't know who, if anyone has footnoted that. Probably someone has, but I would be really interested to fling that Andy Kessen's way, who is doing a study of the history of bears in early modern entertainment. I'm definitely going to tweet it at him after this. Then Jaques, again, with his speech about a woman who founded 2 alehouses. That sounds too specific to just be a joke. I think they're referring to something that happened, and maybe something that happened in the neighborhood of the theater that this play was written for. Saying, they tried to outlaw, a woman had a license for 2 alehouses, and they tried to take away her license, and she gave the constable free drinks, and she won.
And I wonder if the expression that 2 of the disannullers, like 2 of the people that brought the suit, maybe lost their nightcaps. Is that a way of saying we would say they lost their shirts? They lost all their, they spent all the money they had trying to put her out of business and still lost the suit.
It's possible, but it's also possible that maybe when they tried to shut the place down, there was a fight. Because they then say a third stood excommunicate by the cudgel, and there was a law that Englishmen had to wear caps and they had to wear caps that were made in England. So who knows? But I do. I mean, I don't mean to contradict you, Lynn, because I do think that's plausible.
A guess. So it's just a guess.
Island and Rachael.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of the stuff in this is very much of the time of the play. There was a reference earlier, I haven't got the precise word, but making her ride the Sunday mule, which I think was similar to the ducking stool type routine, basically a punishment that would have been handed out to unruly women. And there's also a trope which still goes on to this day of let's have a go at the Morris dancers as well.
I mean, have you met them? No, I'm kidding.
Yes, I have met Morris teams. Occasionally even sober ones.
That's strange.
Yes, weird. It has to be early in the day.
I should not slander Morris dancers. They're actually quite talented. Rachael, thoughts?
I wanted to know, because I know the nightcap here refers to the hats that they're wearing, but when does nightcap also come to mean, like if anybody knows in the room, when does it also come to mean a drink that you have at the end of the night? And could there be a double entendre there, like these guys, they've not only lost their shirts in this suit, but they've, threw up or something. They upchucked their nightcap.
I think it's much later. That's my guess.
Probably. My question is, what is a washing beetle? Because it sounds quite aggressive.
I think that was a tool, a washing dolly, I think they've been called in more recent times. Basically a wooden implement that you used in a copper or in a tub to move the washing around. Basically serves the same purpose as a drum does on a modern washing machine.
Yeah, and thus a handy thing to hit someone over the head with.
Oh yeah, convenient implement.
Yeah. And another question of mine is, well, because I don't know enough about this language, is what's the obsession with crab trees? Is that just a thing of like a joke of a sex joke type thing, STD type joke, or what? Sorry, Rachael, or Liza, then Rachael.
Let's say Rachael first.
Oh, I mean, it could be it could be an STD joke, but when they said crab tree, I thought they meant crab apple tree, like the smaller variety of apples that are like, they're not so good to eat, but I think you might be able to make ale out of them. Can you?
Yes, cider. Yes.
That's exactly it. That they're bitter to taste, but you can make jelly, jam. You can use them in cooking. You can but they're if you see a crab referenced in a play, often it's not one of these crabs, but a crab,
think I've ever
but a
heard.
crab apple, and it's
Yeah.
often associated with bitterness and general
Oh,
unpleasantness.
okay, good. Yeah. So I don't think a crab was ever the crustacean. I think that's much later. Crab is always crab apple. As a matter of fact, just sort of as little trivia, the kind of big edible eating apples we have didn't exist yet. Johnny Appleseed, centuries later in the United States, went around planting apple trees for cider. But apples really weren't edible until much more recently. So yeah, apples were used as a kind of garnish. You roasted them and put them in a beverage, or for like
Apple
for cider
Johns,
making.
you could bake
Yeah,
them.
yeah, yeah. But you couldn't just pick it off the tree and munch it down until like the next century. There was an MP who used to eat apples on the parliament floor as a way of saying, I'm not really interested in what this person who's speaking now is saying. Yeah. But the bitterness I hadn't really picked up on. Yeah, they weren't really edible. So a crab tree is somebody who's bitter. Sorry, I
That
talked too much.
makes sense. Elizabeth, or I think Rachel had something to say, but I'm not sure. Okay.
Is Rachel want to go first?
No, I was just gonna say the exact same thing Lynn said about Johnny Appleseed.
Oh. Yeah, I was thinking of that the text confirms that you're right, because it talks about the devil. Does someone know the devil? And say, well, it would have been a woman, wouldn't it? And I think that was a reference to like the Garden of Eden. But it doesn't say an apple, it says a fruit. So I was just thinking to myself, it's interesting that I think, commonly associate that fruit in the Garden of Eden as an apple. But in this text, it just says fruit.
Yeah, I wonder when that happened. When the idea of it being an apple.
It's certainly late, because in all of the mystery plays that I was involved with doing before we went into the plague years, it is always referred to as the fruit of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, never referred to as an apple.
No, it does date back to it does date back medieval, because there is a lyric called Adam lay y bounden, which is
I like Adam
popular
lay y
song.
bounden.
All was for an apple that he took, as Clarkus Finden written in their book.
Interesting. Rachel, and then we move on because
I think it would be an apple at this time, because I remember one of the apprentices of I'm gonna forget his name, but he was a famous painter and what did you call them? Etchings guy, and the apprentice was obsessed with the religion. This Adam and Eve imagery, I think, was one of his like famous ones, and it's like Eve taking the apple like and giving it to Adam, who's also death at the same time. So there is like, and this was like in the early 1500s. So I think there is that imagery's been there for a while with this apple. So I think maybe also that they call it a crab tree in this, that they're referring to it as a very bitter tree or a very bitter fruit in a certain way.
probably yes. Okay, cool. I'm glad I asked the question then, because now I know more about apples than I needed to. But I mean, it's never too late. Sorry, I'll shut up now. Act 2, Scene 6. Enter Petronius, Petruchio, Moroso, Sophocles, and Tranio. So basically everybody who's on stage plus Tranio, if I'm not mistaken.
I am indifferent, though I must confess, I'd rather see her carted.
Tranio?
Are you resolved to give her fair conditions? 'Twill be the safest way.
I am distracted. Would I had run my head into a halter when I first wooed her. If I offer peace, she'll urge her own conditions. That's the devil.
Why? She say she do?
Say I am made an ass, then. I know her aim. May I, with reputation, answer me this, with safety of mine honor, after the mighty manage of my first wife, which was indeed a fury to this filly. After my 12 strong labors, to reclaim her, which would have made Don Hercules horn mad and hide him in his hide and hid him in his hide, suffer this Sicily, ere she have warmed my sheets, ere grappled with me, this painted foist, this cockle boat. I'll hang her fights out, and defy me, friends, a well-known man of war, if this be equal, and I may suffer, and I have done.
I do not think you may.
You'll make it worse, sir.
Pray hear me, good Petruchio. But even now, you were contented to give all conditions to try how far she would carry. 'Tis a folly, and you will find it so to clap the curb on, ere you be sure it proves a natural wildness, and not a forced. Give her conditions, for on my life this trick is put into her.
I should believe so too.
And not her own.
You'll find it so.
Then if she flounder with you, clap spurs on, and in this you'll deal with temperance. Avoid the hurry of the world.
And lose.
And there be music above.
No honour on my life, sir.
I will do it.
It seems they are very merry.
Enter Jaques.
Why, God hold it.
Now, Jaques.
They're in the flaunt, sir.
Yes, we hear him.
They've got a stick of fiddles, and they firk it in wondrous ways, the two grand capitanos. They brought the auxiliary regiments. Dance with their coats tucked up to their bare breeches and bid 'em kiss 'em. That's the burden. They've got metheglin and audacious ale and talk like tyrants.
How knowest thou?
I peeped in at a loose lansket. Health for all this day to the woman that bears the sway and wears the breeches. Let it come, let this health be a seal for the good of the commonweal. The woman shall wear the breeches. Let's drink then and laugh it, and merrily, merrily quaff it, and tipple around. Here's to thy fool and to my fool, come to all us fools, though it cost us, wench, many a pound.
Hark!
A song! Pray silence!
And all the women above, and citizens and countrywomen.
They look out.
Good even, ladies.
God ye good even, sir.
How have you slept tonight?
Exceeding well, sir.
Did you not wish me with you?
Oh, no, believe me, I never thought upon you.
Is that he?
Yes.
Sir?
She has drank hard, mark her hood.
You are...
Learned drunk. Learnedly drunk, I'll hang else. Let her utter.
And I must tell you, Viva bought your friend a very foolish fellow.
There's an ale figure.
I thank you, Susan Broats.
Forward, sister.
You have espoused here a hardy woman, and comely and courageous.
Well, I have so.
And to the comfort of distressed damsels, women outworn in wedlock in such vessels, this woman has defied you.
It should seem so.
And why?
Yes, can you tell?
For 13 causes.
Pray, by your patience, mistress.
Forward, sister.
Do you mean to treat all of these?
Who shall let her?
Do you hear, Velvet Hood? We come not now to hear your doctrine.
For the first, I take it, it doth divide itself into 7 branches.
Hark you, good Maria, have you got a catechizer here?
Good zeal.
Good pilled predication. Will you peace and hear the cause we come for?
Yes, Bobtails, we know the cause you come for. Here's the cause, but never hope to carry her, and never dream or flatter your opinions with the thought of base repentance in her.
Give me sack, by this and next strong ale,
Swear forward, sister.
by all that's cordial in this place we'll bury our bones, fames, tongues, our triumphs, and then all that ever yet was chronicled of woman. But this brave wench, this excellent despiser, this bane of dull obedience, shall inherit his liberal will, and march off with conditions noble and worth herself.
She shall Tom Tyler's and brave ones too. My hood shall make a harsh cloth, and I'll lie under it like Joan a gaunt. Ere I go less, my distaff stuck up by me, but for the eternal trophy of my conquests, and loud fame at my head with 2 main bottles shall fill to all the world the glorious fall of old Don Julian.
Yet a little further, we have taken arms in rescue of this lady, not just and noble, if ye beat us off without conditions, and we recant, use us as we deserve, and first degrade us of all our ancient chambering, next that the symbols of our secrecy, silk stockings, hue of our heels, our petticoats of arms tear off our bodies, and our bodkins break over our coward heads.
And ever after to make the tainture more notorious, most notorious, all our crests, bleached our blankets, let laces hang, and we return again into our former titles, dairy maids.
No more wars. Puissant ladies, show conditions, and I freely accept them.
Call in Livia. She's in the treaty too.
Enter Livia above.
Oh, Livia?
Hear you that, sir. There's the conditions for ye. Pray peruse 'em.
Yes, there she is. It had been no right rebellion had she held off. What think you, man?
Nay, nothing. I've had enough of the prospect of my conscience, the world's end, and the goodness of a woman will come together.
Are you there, sweet lady?
Cry you mercy, sir. I saw you not. Your blessing.
Yes, when I bless a jade that stumbles with me. How are the articles?
This is for you, sir, and I shall think upon't.
You have used me finely.
There's no other use of thee now extant, but to be hung up, cassock, cap, and all, for some strange monster at apothecary's.
I hear you, whore.
It must be his then, sir, for need will then compel me. Blessing on thee, he will undo me in mere pans of coals to make him lusty.
There's no talking to 'em. How are they, sir?
As I expected, liberty and clothes win in what way she will, continual moneys, company, and all the house at her dispose. No tongue to say, why is this? Or whither will it? New coaches and some buildings she appoints here, hangings and hunting horses, and for plate and jewels for her private use, I take it, 2,000 pounds in present, and then for music and women to read French.
This must not be.
And at the latter end, a clause put in that Livia shall by no man be importuned this whole month yet to marry.
This is monstrous.
This shall be done. I'll humor her a while. If nothing but repentance and undoing can win her love, I'll make a shift for one.
When ye are once abed, all these conditions lie under your own seal.
Do you like him?
Yes, and by that faith I gave you for the priest, I'll ratify them.
Stay, what pledges?
No, I'll take that oath, but have a care you keep it.
'Tis not now as when Andrea lived.
If you do juggle or alter but a letter of these articles we have set down, the selfsame persecution.
Distrust him not.
By all my honesty.
Enough. I yield.
What's this inserted here?
But the two valiant women that command here shall have a supper maiden, and a large one, and a liberal entertainment without grudging, and pay for all their soldiers.
That shall be 2. And if a ton of wine will serve to pay him, they shall have justice. I ordain ye all paymasters, gentlemen.
And we shall have sport, boys.
We'll meet you in the parlor.
Ne'er look sad, sir, for I will do it.
There's no danger in't.
For Livia's articles, you shall observe it. I have tied myself.
I will.
Along then. Now either I break, or this stiff plant must bow.
And they exit. I worry about Sophocles going, there's no danger in it. Nothing can possibly go wrong. Which is always the line. That was an interesting scene. I'm intrigued by these negotiations. Rachael.
What is going on? Has a treaty just been offered, or like I really have no idea what they've been saying in this scene. I'm so confused.
Yeah, a treaty has been offered. They basically, the women have offered terms, and the men have agreed to them. Whether they intend to keep them remains to be seen. But as if the terms are as Petruchio read out, Livia doesn't get asked to marry anyone for a month, at least. Then, as a wife, Maria asks for liberty and clothes when and in what way she wills, so nobody gets to criticize how she dresses. Continual monies, so nobody gets to control her income. Company, so nobody gets to say who she can and can't hang out with. All the house at her dispose. No tongue to say, why is this, or whither wilt. Nobody asks where she's going when she goes out. New coaches, some buildings, hangings, hunting horses, plate, that's silver dishes, and jewels for her private use. And then for plate and jewels for her private use, £2,000 in present, and music and women to read French. Scandalous.
No, I know, so scandalous. My question is that what Petronius, her father, is taking offense at, or is it the whole endeavor in general? Because he does go, oh no, that's outrageous, how dare they? No, this must not be, basically. And then sort of when they ask for Livia to say,
he may be horrified by the perceived luxury and expenditure of the lifestyle she's asking for, but I think that given his later outburst after the Livia clause, saying this is monstrous, that oh my God, she should be reprieved from marriage for a whole month. Terrible. That what he's really outraged at is the loss of control. And in the early modern idea of how the world should work, parents should determine who their children marry. They're older and wiser, and furthermore, a portion of their money is going with the child, and they expect to see a return on that investment, and so a wise parent should pick a good spouse for their child, which they didn't always, and a child should be absolutely obedient to the parent's wisdom in choosing that good spouse. Reality was often somewhat different.
Lynn,
as much as this play is like kind of all about, like, especially in the first act, bodily function jokes and it's kind of slapsticky and it's working hard to be funny, which I think it is. It also really has some interesting just sort of meditations on the complex relations of human desire and social expectations. Petruchio doesn't want to get with his wife mainly because he desires her. That's not what he says. What he's anxious about is that people are going to talk. Is that they're basically going to say, like, he can't even consummate his own marriage. He's so pussy whipped. So he's got no good options. He can either hold out or give in, and either way, his reputation has been compromised. So and as Liza said, the pleasurable, luxurious living that Maria is asking for is maybe not in itself the problem. The problem is that she gets to decide. It's about control. It's about who's in charge. So, it's funny and it's kind of goofy and lightweight, but actually it kind of gets at some real tensions in the way we have decided to set up larger social relations in this period.
Yeah, it's Rachael. Yeah.
No, I was gonna say the things about the French and the asking for to have a coach and the play and that having to ask for income from a spouse. I don't know, the thing about French is the access to language and foreign language and what people find appropriate for women to read or do. Like Edith Wharton, I think didn't read a novel until after she was married, and to get around that and still be able to read books, she would read histories and things like that because her mother asked her not to because she thought it would poison her mind towards marriage or towards men or something. And then also there's in the Diary of Murasaki Shikibu, who's famous for the tale of Genji. She was brought into a rival empress's court, and the Chinese language had fallen out of favor in the court. But even before that, women were not supposed to know Chinese because it was considered a male language for doing business. And the empress, she was giving the empress secret Chinese lessons and teaching her how to read documents and have more, power just by giving her that knowledge. And then the income money thing was also just from reading one of Edith Wharton's novels where it seemed like, I forget which one it is, but it seemed like for the women to get involved with the stock market, which was an emerging thing, and even business was a frowned upon thing that said something about maybe here they're trying to say something about vanity or something, but I think in a later period that Edith Wharton's writing about, it's meant to say something about their sexuality and how virtuous and virgin-like they're adhering to.
Yeah, I don't know what I can. Yes, Elizabeth and Liza, or yeah.
I just wanted to say that the terms of the sort of settlements of the treaty was so well thought out and so like exquisitely planned that I feel like Maria has had this. It's Maria, yeah, has had this kind of like working away at the back of her mind for a long time. And it's interesting that she waited until after she was married to bring these requests to her husband, that this is not something that she would do before the wedding. It's something that she would do afterwards. So I just felt it was very, very interesting in terms of like finances, in terms of social standing. Lynn said it really beautifully, but I just wanted to add that there's a real sense of agency here, and there's real sense of Maria taking control of her life, even though she's married.
Yeah, I just like to imagine that the articles are basically like, sort of, I don't know, papyrus, a really long list of things, but he's only reading like one or two of them because he's really not wanting to. Liza, did you have anything to add?
Oh, just that what Rachael was saying about the stock market is very much, I mean, and as Elizabeth said about the articles in the treaty, one of the main things is control of her own finances. so her husband doesn't get to give her an allowance or forbid her to spend money on things. And that was a huge thing for social agency.
Yeah, that is interesting. Rachel?
To what Elizabeth said, like, and also about this finance thing again, that the showing her agency, you know, her parents and her husband might have been a big part of the talk of marriages and the exchanges. And if her parents have given him money, there has to be some sort of feeling that whatever was given, that was, you know, part of her lifestyle before hasn't been given to her or has been, you know, withheld, that might be causing this, that, you know, if she had remained single, she might have been able to enjoy, maybe not in the same way, but maybe that thing that comes up, what was it? The two angry women of Abington that we had, where it was the one daughter wanted to get married young because then she could command her house. And she comes into this and she finds that, you know, if she doesn't demand it of her husband, she's not going to have the liberty that she expected when she left her parents' house.
Liza?
I mean, if you were an early modern woman, and correct me if I'm wrong, everyone, if you were unmarried, your parents had control of your resources and of your consent. If your parents were deceased, it was your closest male relative. You might have control of you might have some property in your own name if you were unmarried and all of your parents and male relatives were deceased. When you got married, your parents would ideally give a portion, some material goods and money with you to your husband, who would then have control of it and not you. But as Rachael said, you were then the mistress of your own household. So even though you're nominally supposed to be obedient to your husband, you have a little more autonomy than you did as someone's child. Where you really luck into things is when you get widowed, because then your husband's goods and presumably anything that's left of your dowry comes to you in your own right, and you get to choose. And that's partly why widows and especially lustful widows are such a thing in early modern plays, that these are women who are not, their life is not such that they have to choose a man, so they must be choosing a man because they want one. Scandalous.
No, right? Scandalous. My question, well, I've got
on the
two
other hand,
questions.
society really wanted them to remarry because like they're such a loose cannon. So yeah, widows were source of anxiety, I think, for early modern society.
My question is, who is Andrea? And also, there was a part of me going, you know, okay, that's Spanish tragedy. That's not a thing. But
Might be.
I don't know. It just came up like It's Not Now As When Andrea Lived, and I'm like, okay, who's that? Unless it's a reference to Andrea the tragedy, the sort of, you know, bad comedy that we read.
I would be interested to see an original text or the original text of this, to see if that's different, or because this edition's got a couple of corruptions in it.
Yeah.
I don't know where it was scanned from.
Yeah. Also, the other question is, how did they smuggle the city and country wenches in?
I think they've gathered in the street outside, basically.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, what I'm visualizing is a townhouse or a house in a square, you know, and effectively we know that there is access to the area below, because that's where the interchange with Livia occurred.
Yeah.
And effectively the ladies of the country and the city have assembled in a similar area. So I think you could visualize it staging terms as you've got the three ladies, you know, waving the banners from the balcony, and the mob below.
Well, it does say, it does say all the women above and then citizens and countrywomen. So I assumed that they were smuggled into the house somehow.
No,
It sounded much more exciting.
I think they're surrounding the outside of the property.
There's at the end of the scene where Livia joins up, they mention a secret passage inwards through the parlor door. So, and also the city and country women have the articles, the treaty set out. So they've definitely been in private communication. I think it's still all the women above and all the men below. But proof of the pudding would be to stage this. Rachael.
I was going to say, there's even though we were talking about how this is, I guess, before, modern day feminism or, these types of movements that we have there, during the French Revolution, there was a woman who wrote The Rights of the Woman and the Citizen, which was making sure that women didn't get left behind in the revolution, and was saying all these different things. And this kind of reminds me of it with all these women waving their articles, because it has a whole bunch of articles in it listed down. I forget the woman's name, but I'll put it in the chat or something if I remember.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. Okay, before we lose any steam and stuff, Act 3, Scene 1, enter Tranio and Rowland.
Come, you shall take my counsel.
I shall hang first. I'll no more love, that's certain. 'Tis a bane. Next that they poison rats with, the most mortal. No, I thank heaven, I've got my sleep again, and now begin to write sense. I can walk ye a long hour in my chamber like a man, and think of something that may better me, some serious point of learning or my state. No more me's and miseries, Tranio. Come near my brain. I'll tell thee, had the devil but any essence in him of a man, and could be brought to love and love a woman, 'twould make his head ache worse than his horns do, and furk him with a fire he never felt yet, would make him dance. I tell thee, there is nothing. It may be thy case, Tranio, therefore hear me. Under the sun, reckon the mass of follies crept into the world with man, so desperate, so mad, so senseless, poor and base, so wretched, roguey and scurvy.
Whither wilt thou, Rowland?
As 'tis to be in love.
And why, for virtue's sake?
And why, for virtue's sake? Dost thou not conceive me?
No, by my troth.
Pray then and heartily, for fear thou fall into it. I'll tell thee why too, for I have hope to save thee. When thou lovest, and first beginnest to worship the gilt calf, imprimis, thou hast lost thy gentry, and like apprentice flung away thy freedom. Forthwith thou art a slave.
That's a new doctrine.
Next, thou art no more man.
What then?
A frippery. Nothing but braided hair and penny ribboned, glove, garter, ring, rose, or at best a swabber. If thou canst love so near to keep thy making, yet thou wilt lose thy language.
Why?
O Tranio, those things in love ne'er talk as we do.
No?
No, without doubt they sigh and shake the head, and sometimes whistle dolefully.
No tongue?
Yes, Tranio, but no truth in it, nor no reason. And when they can't, for 'tis a kind of canting, ye shall hear, if you reach to understand them, which you must be a fool first, or you cannot. Such gibberish, believe me, I protest, sweet. And oh dear heavens, in which such constellations reign at the births of lovers. This is too well, and deign me, lady, deign me, I beseech ye, you poor unworthy lump. And then she licks him.
Oh, on it, this is nothing.
Thou hast hit it. Then talks she 10 times worse, and writhes, and wriggles, and though she had the itch, and so it may be.
Why, thou art grown a strange discoverer.
of my own follies, Tranio.
Wilt thou, Rowland, certain ne'er love again?
I think so, certain, and if I be not dead drunk, I shall keep it.
Tell me but this, what dost thou think of women?
Why, as I think of fiddles, they delight me till their strings break.
What strings?
Their modesties, faiths, vows, and maidenheads, for they are like kids. They have but 4 strings to 'em.
What wilt thou? Give me for £10 now, when thou next lovest, and the same woman still?
Give me the money, 100, and my bond for it.
But pray hear me. I'll work all means I can to reconcile ye.
Do, give me the money.
There,
Work, Tranio.
you shall go sometimes where she is.
Yes, straight. This is the first good I e'er got by woman.
You would think it strange now if another beauty as good as hers, say better,
Well,
deceive me. This is no point of the wager.
that's all one.
Love you as much or more than now she hates you?
'Tis a good hearing. Let 'em love. £10 more. I'll never love that woman.
There it is. And so 100 if you lose.
'Tis done. Have you another to put in?
No, no, sir.
I am very sorry. Now will I erect a new game and go hate for the bell. I am sure I am in excellent case to win.
I must have leave to tell you and tell truth too, what she is and how she suffers for you.
£10 more. I never believe you.
No, sir, I'm stinted.
Well, take your best way then.
Let's walk, I'm glad. Your sullen fever's off.
Shalt see me, Tranio, a monstrous merry man now. Let's to the wedding. And as we go, tell me the general hurry of these mad wenches and their works.
I will.
And do thy worst.
Something I'll do.
Do, Tranio.
And they exit, and they're going to go to a wedding with fiddles. No, I'll stop the weird jokes. Any thoughts before we speed on to the final scene for today?
I suppose this is supposed to be reminiscent of the bet at the end of a shrew, where I'll bet you my wife comes and your wives don't. I'll bet you I can get you to love again. You're on.
Yeah. Elizabeth had something to say.
Yeah, I was wondering, as Lynn said, if it was a bet or if he was just giving the money away. Because he said he wanted 100. I thought 100 was a lot as well.
It is, right?
And then he kept saying £10 more.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know.
Alan.
Yeah, I mean, I think what again we've got is we've got a group of overprivileged and rather too well-off male characters who delight in flashing the cash around rather than any reasonable abilities or anything. You know, we've got the money, we're going to do what we want. Now, that couldn't have happened in modern politics, could it?
No, never. Of course not. Rachel.
Yeah, I was gonna say that I wonder if this is a scene that to an audience at the time, like when we were reading If You Know Not Me, You Know Nobody, I think was it part 2 where they're drinking down the crushed pearl, that it could be that what do you call it, richness, the conspicuous consumption thing, that these are really, really upper class people. And I wonder there's certain, comparing it to modern movies, that there's certain decades where glamour seems to be more popular and other times where it's not as popular, and the depiction of glamour is sometimes something for people to be critical of and to talk about. And I wonder which is popular on the stage at this time and how an audience of this time was meant to perceive them talking about such large amounts of money for such such small things, for such small bets.
Yeah. Well, I assumed that Rowland was kind of well, not a wastrel, but someone who didn't have a lot of money because of the previous scene. He kind of, I mean, the previous scene he appeared in, because Tranio had gone, oh yeah, I'll, if he needs any help with money or advice, I'll offer it. But I don't know if that's just because, okay, I like this guy, we're gonna go drinking. I don't know, maybe that's just me. Any other thoughts before we move on to the final scene of the session? Elizabeth.
I was wondering what the room thought about Rowland's love sickness. It comes upon him quite quickly and quite fervently, but I think he protests too much.
Oh, he absolutely does. I mean, he's because people who react in extreme ways to things, it's absolutely the trope of the young lover saying, because before he was like, oh, I love her so much, and it's like, oh my God, she said 2 mean words to me, and now I completely hate her, and I hate all women, and I'll never love again. It's, and of course, he then becomes like this fire hose of misogyny. They're like, all women are evil. They're like violins, and they're not entertaining anymore once they've broken their strings, and the strings are a metaphor for honesty or something, and I don't know where I'm going with this. So, that...
Well, also we had all the fiddle jokes at the beginning, which was, I mean, fiddle / sex jokes, a fiddle without a bow is kind of pointless.
Absolutely, where the fiddle was equated to the body of a woman because it looks kind of...
Yeah, it got curves. But also it's weird because a fiddle with broken strings, like how I don't want to picture it, like the analogy, using the body analogy for the fiddle and the broken strings is kind of weird.
Well, the strings are what hold it together. Sorry,
Lynn. Or are you just scratching your head?
No, I'm in the chat and fidgeting. That's it. Sorry.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Any other thoughts, or shall we move on? Okay. Act 3, Scene 2. Enter Pedro and Jaques.
A pair of stocks bestride him. Are they gone? Are they gone, Jack?
Sorry, I'm the worst servant in the world. Yes, they are gone. All the pans in the town beating before him. What strange admonitions they gave my master, and how fearfully they threatened if he broke him.
Oh, my conscience. He has found his full match now.
That I believe too.
How did she entertain him?
She looked on him.
But scurvily.
With no great affection that I saw. I heard some say he kissed her, but 'twas upon a treaty, and some copies say but her cheek.
Jack, what wouldst thou give for such a wife now?
Full as many prayers as the most zealous Puritan conceives out of the meditation of fat veal or birds of prey, crammed capons against players, and to as good a tune too, but against her that heaven would bless me from her. Mark it, Pedro. If this house be not turned within this fortnight with the foundation upward, I'll be carted. My comfort is yet that these Amorites that came to back her cause, these heathen whores, had their hoods hallowed with sack.
How devilish drunk they were.
And how they tumbled, Pedro. Didst thou mark the country cavaliero?
Well, out upon her, how she turned down the braggart.
Aye, that sunk her.
That drink was well put to her. What a somersault when the chair fell she fetched with her heels upward.
And what a piece of landscape she discovered.
Didst mark her when her hood fell in the posset?
Aye, yes, and there rid like a Dutch hoy, the tumbrel when she had got her ballast.
That I saw too.
How fain she would have drawn on Sophocles to come aboard. How she simpered it.
I warrant her, she has been a worthy striker.
In the heat of summer there had been some hope on't.
Hanger.
She offered him a hairy groat. Ew. And belched out, her stomach being blown with ale. Such courtship upon my life has given him 20 stools since. Believe my calculation. These old women, when they are tippled and a little heated, are like new wheels. They'll roar you all the town o'er till they be greased.
This city syncope, dame tossed and butter. Had the bob too?
Yes, but she was sullen drunk and given to filching. I see her offer at a spoon. My master, I do not like his look. I fear he has fasted for all this preparation. Let's steal by him.
And they exit. And yeah. This is basically servants gossiping about their masters. I get that part.
Well, it's that, but it's also the country woman and the city woman, who have no names but definitely have characters, have gotten incredibly drunk at this treaty signing party and have fallen over, and one of them's hood fell in the pot of porridge, and she discovered some untoward parts, and she also propositioned Sophocles in a very lewd manner, it appears. So these are women doing what men usually do. These are, and in Brome's The Antipodes, you also see a woman coming on to a young man in a very, in a sort of brutal way, and going, "Oh, be not nice, don't be finicky with me. Just put out." And so these are again. We're continuing, even though the treaty's been signed, we're still continuing the inversion that these are women who are taking masculine coded roles of sexual aggression.
Yeah, cool. Alan, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, to a certain extent, it's nicely bookended the session. We started with the scene, which seemed to be basically aimed at the groundlings and low humour. And we've ended up in a very similar sort of place with an interesting arc in between, some of which was actually interesting philosophical discussion, interspersed with some good gags. I mean, there are certainly plenty of gags in this piece.
Yeah.
A lot of which I've lasted. In fact, a lot of which I'm sure I've heard comedians do in the not so distant past, before it was deemed politically incorrect so to use the material.
Yeah, it's sort of I'm just wondering if I should segue into final thoughts here, because because you can have the thoughts about the scene and also about the rest of the Therefore, Alan, do you have any other final thoughts to add?
No, I mean, there's interesting material here. I mean, it's an interesting, the basic concept, I think we explored yesterday, which was to take the taming play and sort of invert a lot of it. And it's been quite successful on that basis. And that's not an easy job for an author to do, to actually take other source material and to effectively reverse engineer the gendering of it and to make it successful. But I think it does work, and there's, as I say, there's some good gags in there. There's not that much material that I've spotted that I would be thinking, maybe some of that is a bit de trop. But it's basically there. I think Liza identified one or two bits where she felt a blue pencil might be a useful tool to have in the toolbox, but I've not spotted that many.
Yeah, it's kind of, well, I'm just wondering how drunk the cast is going to be by the end of this play, because they do have a drinking party basically, and like midway through. Obviously, I don't know. Do people use, having not worked in theater before? Would they use actual alcohol? Would they? No, anyway, yeah. Yeah.
Not. I don't know what the practice may have been in the early modern era, where not a lot of pure water was drunk. They might well have used small beer, which was something like maybe 2% alcohol. It was made from the second or third go round on the same mash. In our era, you would absolutely not use real alcohol unless it was the last night and you were getting really frisky. You generally use cold tea to represent beer. Chamomile tea represents wine. Ribena represents red wine. Ribena is a blackcurrant drink that we drink in the UK.
So since you're talking, any final thoughts, Liza?
Yes. Well, this play is still fun, and there is so much to talk about. So I'm interested to see what happens next. Mariah has agreed to terms that mean the women have come out of their fortified place, and she's actually going to spend the night with Petruchio. But, they're going to spend the night together. Does that, that just brings the fight a little bit more towards it's less an army besieging and more of a sort of single combat thing. So let's just see what happens next.
Yeah, I mean, having read Lysistrata, I'm not gonna spoil it, because I don't know if that's gonna happen. But yeah. Anyway, being ambushed. Yeah. Rachael, any final thoughts? I know you've only been here one session, but yes.
Yeah. Even though I was here for Taming of a Shrew, I'm still, I think, a little lost because I wasn't here for the first session. I've enjoyed the conversation that's come up around this and a lot of the points that people have brought up. And I think so far, if the first session was like what we did today, I think this could be a really nice conversation piece for company to include in one of their seasons, because it really has generated a lot of conversation. Yeah.
Yeah, Alexandra yesterday was saying that do you perform it by itself? Do you need context, like for the other one, the other possible source plays or play? And yeah, it's an interesting. Elizabeth, any final thoughts?
Yeah, I think that the gender dynamic ideas and the sort of slight misogyny that you get from the kind of extended battle metaphor, that is easier to swallow, I think, than like the xenophobia and the anti-Semitism and stuff that we've seen in some other plays. I think this holds up quite well. I think the comedy holds up quite well, and that it doesn't go overboard with the bawdy jokes, which is quite good. I really enjoyed, and I really enjoyed today as well. And I just hope that this play doesn't succumb to the curse of the third session, or the fourth session. The curse of the fourth session. I think some of the characters really come off the page, and I'd love to see this performed. I'd love to see it performed. It goes very well with plays like Englishman for My Money and The Insatiate Countess. I think it will go very well with some of the other plays that we've covered. And I would just love to see a second look on this, really.
Yeah, I get the feeling that Rob would enjoy that too. Lynn, since final thoughts, most elegant person in the room, and eloquent.
No, stop. Yeah, but it's actually apropos that I'm right after Elizabeth, because I have been thinking about what Elizabeth said earlier about how noteworthy it is that Maria waits till after she's married to make her demands, because we've seen the observation in early modern plays, in early modern literature, that during the courtship period is when the woman has all her power. And Elizabeth I, Queen Elizabeth I, knew that as long as she held out and didn't actually get married, she was in the power position. And she entertained or pretended to entertain the possibility that she might end up getting married almost to the end of her life. So why does Maria wait until she's not in that power position anymore? That we've seen this over and over again. I can't quote because it's against the rules, but basically when you're the object of desire, the female, the young woman, you've got the power, but as soon as you are married, he's supposed to be the boss and you're supposed to be obedient. And so why doesn't she make these demands? Okay, I'll marry you, but you have to agree to this and this and this and this before I agree to marry you. That I don't have an answer to that, but I think that's really, it strikes me that must be important, particularly if you're staging this and trying to think of what makes Maria tick. What are her motivations? You've got to answer that question. Why does she make that tactical move of waiting till she's married to say, okay, this is what our marriage is going to look like, instead of when she's still holding out, when she would normally have the leverage.
Yeah, but also, sorry, yeah.
Sorry. That's a wonderful point, Lynn, and it put me in mind of the scene in a much later play, William Congreve's The Way of the World, where Millamant and Mirabelle discuss what their marriage is going to look like before she consents to marry him. And I don't know, I mean, I think she does want to marry him. She makes that clear even in the big battle scene. She says, if I could choose from all the world, I would choose you, even just in your shirt with no possessions. Right. I would choose you.
Right. If you paid your last 2 groats to the minister who married us, I would marry you. So yeah.
So, but yeah, I mean, I do wonder, as you say, why she waits to negotiate. And I suppose she gets explicitly warned about him after they've come from the wedding, warned about his taming reputation. But I'm sorry, I've talked quite a lot, and I should hand this back to Eric and back to everyone else.
No, I was just going to mention that it's interesting how Byancha does not appear in that scene, in the negotiation scene, because she's the commander-in-chief, supposedly. So, well, at least based on the ranking system that we've given in the dramatis personae. So it's kind of interesting that she's also not there, or at least she doesn't say anything.
Doesn't she have one line?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I get the impression that Byancha is the one who's probably authored the piece, and Maria has been designated the chosen spokesperson because she's the one who has got the immediate power to force some resolution to the equation.
Yeah, I think it's more like it might have even been a collective discussion over beer and alcohol and ale and all that stuff that is mentioned in the play, where they, they've got.
I mean the sort of negotiation that might go on in the ladies' room at a nightclub.
Not quite. But yeah, it's kind of interesting to note that she's not there, because she is a very strong presence from the beginning. She kind of, yeah. Anyway, any other thoughts before I close the session? This is your final chance to say something about this part of the play before we, I was going to say before we head downhill, but I don't know what's going to happen next, so I can't really make that claim. Well, I guess that leaves me just to thank the readers for this lovely reading, and goodbye. And I hope I don't have a line. This is very bad. This is monstrous. Have a good one.